Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Rebel Retirement. I'm Marlene. Today, I want to talk about something that I think a lot of people that are planning retirement think about, but don't always think through it clearly, and that is moving in retirement. And so today, I wanted to discuss the pros and cons of moving in retirement because there are a lot of advantages, but there's also some surprises. So while I go over this, I'm going to dive into that. I'm going to flip the camera around so you guys can enjoy the scenery while I go over those pros and cons. So number one on my list is you can save money. And many people nearing retirement worry about their futures. The fear of running out of money for necessary living expenses is one of the greatest fears that people planning retirement have. So if you want to keep expenses down and stay within a budget, you can always move to another state where there's lower property taxes, no sales tax, or a lower cost of living. And this can have a profound impact on your post-retirement life, giving you the financial freedom to focus on what you truly value. But in this economy, moving and purchasing a home in another state can be a real difficult situation. So I'm not an expert in real estate, but before you pick up and sell your house and move to another state, be sure to really look into that and understand what you're doing before you make that big move. Number two, fulfill a lifelong dream. So this is something where you can fulfill a lifelong dream or passion, and moving can be a motivator. So it's an excellent way to break out of a rut and reverse a stagnant lifestyle. So if you're looking for something new, you can often attain your goals when you put distance between ourselves and peer pressure or the herd mentality that we've had all of the years in living in a certain environment, living in a certain neighborhood. I wholeheartedly recommend that anybody that wants to do that, don't let life pass you by. Number three, you can improve your lifestyle. And if you're maintaining a pre-retirement lifestyle, one that's no longer practical as when you were in the workforce, by letting go of the big house and expensive toys that you don't need, you can cut down on wasteful high bills like insurance, utilities, and storage on some of those things. Yes, of course. Again, we're going to talk about whether or not you can actually sell that big house and move to a smaller one. It's depending on where you move, that smaller house might cost more than the big house where you are now. Number four, your happiness. And happiness is high on the list of importance for retirees. So moving can give you a new perspective. It can help you break free from that retirement comparison thought pattern, resulting in a happier attitude toward growing older. Number five, a healthier lifestyle. In my opinion, a healthier lifestyle is very, very important. And that does translate to a happier retirement, because when you're healthy, you're going to be happier. That just makes sense. You could move to a walkable town and leave your car in the garage. And that way you're making a conscious choice toward a healthier lifestyle. And we all know that exercise is good for our health and longevity. So think about where you're moving. Think about how that's going to affect your health. In the same way, a rural community like the one that we live in has an abundance of outdoor activities. We hike, we bike in the summer, cross-country ski in the winter, and all of this opens the door for improved health. Number six, cultural and recreational opportunities. If you plan your move wisely, your new home will have amazing cultural and recreational opportunities. These cultural and recreational opportunities should suit you. So think about what you want in entertainment and look for places with those amenities. Do you want a place with peaceful surroundings where you can easily connect with nature? Or would you prefer the hustle and bustle of a city environment? Is that your cup of tea? Number 7 is improved climate. Now, before moving north, Rebel Retiree and I lived in a hot and humid climate down south, right out of New Orleans. We grew up in New Orleans and moved to the suburbs after we were married. And we lived there almost 50 years. And we were sick and tired of the heat and humidity. We wanted a change. We wanted something new. And so now we have 4 seasons, and it's great. And if you want to escape the heat or cold, moving to a different climate can have overall benefits to your health and well-being. But most importantly, find a retirement haven that suits you. So let's talk about the cons. I'd say one of the biggest cons of moving when you retire, especially if you are moving a great distance, is the expense of traveling to visit friends and relatives. So before you retire, factor in the cost of airfare, gasoline, automobile wear and tear, because visiting family could be expensive, especially if you move far away. Keep that in mind because a lot of us are on a budget after we retire. And if you're accustomed to frequent visits with friends and family, moving could mean that you visit less. Con number 2, missing family and friends. Besides the financial cost of travel, you might have the emotional cost of missing family and friends. And it does take courage and commitment to decide to move away from loved ones. Again, especially if you're thinking about moving far away, because in all likelihood, you won't be able to spend as much time with family and friends as you did before, as much quality time as you did before. And in my personal experience, we do have social media, right? Texting, Zoom, and all of this other video calling and internet access for staying in touch, but it's really not the same as being there. Number 3, not fitting in with the people where you move. When you move to a new place, most people have already established their own groups, and unless you're comfortable making friends, which I hate to be a Debbie Downer. I feel like a lot of this video I'm being a Debbie Downer, but unless you're comfortable making friends, it can be really difficult to find a church or a group where you are at ease. I know a family that moved from Texas up here to Montana, and for years they were going from church to church to church, finding a place where they fit in. You may be spending a lot of time with your partner. So, keep that in mind if you know what your relationship is with your partner, because you may not be able to find a church or a group where you fit in as easily as you think you might be able to. Another thing is people in your new surroundings may be, culturally or politically different than you expected. So always do your research. Number 4, this is a big one. Being alone when your spouse dies. The fear of loneliness is a major stressor for aging individuals. And while you may find yourself alone at some point in the future, regardless of where you live, moving when you retire could make the death of a spouse even more difficult, because if you're grieving without a support network, that can be very, very hard. So consider how you'll handle being alone if you do move and your spouse dies. Number 5, the weather could be worse than expected. So you move to a state where you vacation because the weather was always glorious. My daughter said this would happen to people in Alaska. They'd go to Alaska and they go, oh my gosh, this place is gorgeous, I want to move here. And this would apply to people of any age. And so they would move to Alaska when it was beautiful, And then they would find out that there was a lot of darkness, a lot of cold weather, a lot of snow. Things just weren't like they had anticipated. So remember that your dreams of lounging on the beach in the summer or skiing near your mountain chalet have come to fruition, but then when reality sets in, you're not prepared for the number of rainy days, cloudy skies, uh, dark winters, whatever it might be, and the weather might make you grumpy. And even though you retire to your dream spot, living year round in a place is different than vacationing there for 2 weeks. And number 6, your family could pick up and move away. So a lot of times people will say, oh, I want to move closer to family. I want to be closer to the kids. And it's based on the idea that they want to be a big part of their grandchildren's lives. And they also picture this support network as they age. And despite good intentions, it's not always a good idea to move closer to family because adult children do have their lives. They have their spouses, they have their own life, and they aren't always as happy about parents moving closer to them. And now that they're grown and with families of their own, there's a real possibility that they would relocate for business or otherwise. So don't be disappointed because you had unrealistic expectations of children and grandchildren. I mean, we have our lives. We did what we wanted to do, so respect that as well. I remember when I told my mom that we were moving to Montana. I said, Mom, how do you feel about that? We're moving to Montana. My mother was up in her 70s and, close to 80. And she said, Marlene, it's your life. Do what you want. Don't worry about us. And so she was very loving and giving in that regard. And I always think about that with my own children. So just realize that your kids have their own lives. You have your life and they have their life. So don't move and think that, it's always going to work out just like you expect. So I hope these pros and cons have been helpful to you. And I hope I wasn't too much of a Debbie Downer on the cons because I really do encourage people to, think about moving in retirement because we only have this one life. And sometimes moving is something that we've always wanted to do, but we've put it off for whatever reason. So I encourage you to move. And with that, I would just say that make sure you do your research. Make sure you look at all of the angles. And again, if you can go to the place, I wouldn't just, point to a place on a map and say, I'm going to move there and then do that without actually visiting the place. So there's a lot involved with moving, but again, it can open up a whole new world of adventure. And so if you found this video helpful, please give me a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. I'm Marlene with Rebel Retirement, and I'll see you next time.